It's 40 years since an Italian fashion label signed a deal which began one of the most successful, influential and colourful sponsorship programs in Formula One history. Benetton's entry into Formula One with Tyrrell was successful from the outset, but the brand aspired to do more than just put its stickers on a Formula One car. Within 3 years it had a team of its own and was winning races as a constructor, and in time it enjoyed championship-winning success with one of F1's all-time great drivers. The idea a mere t-shirt manufacturer could succeed in F1 was greeted with skepticism by some on their arrival, but Benetton soon disproved the doubters and inspired other brands to do the same, notably the soft drink producer, which goes into the 2023 season as defending champions. This is the story of Benetton in Formula One. Tyrrell had Denim's logos on their cars when Michele Alboreto won the 1982 season finale at Las Vegas. But Luciano Benetton refused to share space on their car with them, so Tyrrell ended its deal with their rival and painted their cars green for 1983. Alboreto delivered another win in Benetton's 7th race as a sponsor in Detroit. However, it proved the final win for former champions Tyrrell. For the following season, their Italian sponsor had their eye on a manufacturer closer to home. Alfa Romeo's F1 team, run by Euro Racing, successfully courted Benetton as a replacement for outgoing sponsor Marlboro in 1984. But the team's best days were behind it. From 6th in 1983, they slipped 2 places the following year, though they managed to take a single podium finish at Monza, the home event for team and title sponsor. But if 1984 had been bad for Alfa Romeo, 1985 was disastrous. Riccardo Patrese and Eddie Cheever stayed on to drive, but the new 185T chassis proved such a disappointment that Cheever reverted to the 1984 car at one stage. That wasn't enough for the team to avoid ending the year pointless. Benetton opted to move elsewhere, and Alfa Romeo left F1 for more than 3 decades. Instead, Benetton threw its backing behind Toleman. The team's potential was obvious. They had enjoyed podium finishes and nearly a win in 1984 with Ayrton Senna, and while Toleman also ended 1985 pointless, they had missed the start of the season for the bizarre reason of being unable to secure any tyres, and Teo Fabi had shown the car's speed by taking pole position at the Nürburgring. In Toleman, Benetton had found not just a team to sponsor, but one to take over and run the way they chose. Luciano Benetton made a smart move soon after their takeover of Toleman. Instead of using their former relationship with Alfa Romeo to arrange a supply of their engines, Benetton instead did a deal with BMW for their potent turbos. It paid off on F1's quickest tracks, where the B186s, decked out in the United colours of Benetton, were at their most competitive. Gerhard Berger delivered an early podium on the team's home ground at Imola. Fabi took back-to-back pole positions at the Österreich-Ring and Monza. Then, in the penultimate round at Mexico, Berger managed his Pirelli tyres to perfection and gave Benetton a breakthrough victory in their first season as team owners. But before that breakthrough win, Benetton's engine supplier BMW had stunned the F1 paddock by announcing it would leave the series. Benetton reacted quickly, securing an exclusive deal to use Ford engines beginning in 1987. Having lost Berger to Ferrari, Thierry Boutsen joined them for what proved a winless second season. However, they moved up a place to 5th in the Constructors' Championship. There were no wins in 1988 either, but the colourful cars achieved their best championship position to date. In the final year of F1's turbo era, Ford made an early switch to normally aspirated power in preparation for the coming season. Designer Rory Byrne, who'd been with the team since the Toleman days, produced the effective and reliable B188, which delivered 7 podiums for Boutsen and his new teammate Alessandro Nannini, putting the team 3rd in the championship. Benetton were truly among the top teams, but could they go a step forward and become regular race winners? In 1989, Boutsen had left for Williams, so Benetton paired Nannini with Formula 3000 star Johnny Herbert. He had been badly injured at Brands Hatch the year before, but Herbert scored a brave 4th place on his debut in Brazil. Nonetheless, Herbert remained in considerable pain from his injuries and was dropped mid-season. In his place came Emanuele Pirro, who had missed out on a chance to drive a third Benetton as a customer entry in 1987 when the project fell foul of the regulations. But a more significant personnel change for the team's future occurred at the top of the organisation. Seeking better results after those 2 winless years, Luciano Benetton made a surprising appointment in charge of his F1 team. His former North American business head Flavio Briatore, who admitted he knew nothing about motor racing. The team returned to winning ways at the end of the year, albeit in controversial circumstances. Nannini finished second on the road to Senna at Suzuka, but the McLaren driver's disqualification, which cost him the World Championship, earned the Benetton driver his first victory and the team's second win. Briatore made 2 major hirings for 1990. Designer John Barnard arrived from Ferrari to take over the creation of their cars, and 3-time world champion Nelson Piquet joined Benetton from Lotus. Nannini showed up well against Piquet early in the year, but his career was ended in October by a helicopter crash which severed an arm. Roberto Moreno was hired as his replacement. For the second year in a row, Benetton benefited from controversy in Japan to win, Piquet taking his first victory for 3 years, which he followed up with another win at the season finale in Adelaide. Benetton ended the year on a high. Those wins were also the final time Benetton's cars appeared chiefly in their own colours, as they courted other sponsors to foot the team's growing bills. First up was the R.J. Reynolds Tobacco Company, whose Camel brand had been associated with Piquet at Lotus. Barnard's B191 chassis arrived at the 3rd race of the year and won the 5th round in Canada. However, this final win for Piquet was the team's only victory of the year. What's more, its designer Barnard left the team just 3 days later following a long-running dispute with management. There were more changes as well, as Tom Walkinshaw bought into the team. Then, at Monza, Piquet suddenly had a new teammate. After Michael Schumacher impressed on his debut for Jordan at Spa, Bernie Ecclestone urged his friend Briatore to sign him up. In controversial circumstances, Schumacher was prized away from Jordan and Moreno booted out of Benetton to make room for him. But the hiring was immediately vindicated. In his first 3 starts for his new team, Schumacher scored a trio of point-scoring top 6 finishes. The Benettons of the early 90s had a trend-setting, high-nosed look which started with the B191 and was taken a step forward with its successor in 1992. Though the team had lost Barnard, several other notable figures on the technical side returned after brief absences. They include Byrne, Pat Simmons and Willem Toet, who temporarily joined Reynard's abandoned F1 project, while Gordon Kimball continued work on Benetton's latest car in the meantime. There were more significant changes behind the scenes in October as the team moved into its new base at Enstone. That factory is still home to the team's modern successor, Alpine. Benetton was assembling a team capable of eventually taking the fight to the likes of Williams, who dominated the 1992 season with their revolutionary FW14B. 12 months on from his debut, Schumacher scored a breakthrough win at a damp Spa. He was clearly the team's future, while Martin Brundle was consigned to its past after a single season at the team despite a consistent performance. The team fell short of beating McLaren to second in the Constructors' Championship by just 8 points. Benetton's rivalry with McLaren intensified the following year. Both had Ford Cosworth engines in 1993, though Benetton were one development step ahead to begin with. Riccardo Patrese arrived from Williams to take Brundle's vacant seat, but he couldn't live with Schumacher's astonishing speed either. Patrese retired at the end of the year as F1's most experienced driver at the time. While Schumacher took a single win, the team came in 3rd behind McLaren again, but a major change in the rules was about to play into their hands. Heading into 1994, the FIA banned a host of technologies which Williams had perfected in their all-conquering cars of 1992 and 1993. Benetton got their new B194 sorted early, and Ross Brawn's strategists were quick to master new rules which permitted in-race refueling. Meanwhile, as RJ Reynolds called time on their involvement in F1, Benetton sourced another cigarette manufacturer, Japan Tobacco, to take over as title sponsor with its Mild 7 brand, prompting another change of colour scheme. In his blue Benetton, Schumacher outran Senna to win the season opener in Brazil, then followed it up with another win at TI Aida in Japan. Senna, eliminated early, became an interested spectator, suspicious of whether Benetton had truly expunged all the forbidden technologies from their car. At Imola, the championship and the Formula One world changed forever when Senna, leading with Schumacher in pursuit, crashed and was killed. A shaken Schumacher was now the title favourite. From the first 7 races, he scored 6 wins and took 1 second place, which was achieved despite being stuck in 5th gear. However, a spate of controversies over the second half of the year limited Schumacher's point scoring and brought Williams driver Damon Hill into the title fight. They went into the finale separated by a single point, and Schumacher sealed the championship in controversial circumstances after clashing with his rival. Benetton had won 8 races, all courtesy of Schumacher, and taken a driver to the championship for the first time. However, they had missed out on the Constructors' crown, partly because the second car had cycled between JJ Leto, Jos Verstappen, and the returning Herbert over the course of the campaign. Could they go one better the following year? Benetton's successful association with Ford ended as the team seized the opportunity to take the same Renault V10 engines as reigning Constructors' champions Williams in 1995. The objective of adding the team's title was achieved as Schumacher took 9 more wins and Herbert was on hand to pick up 2 more on 2 occasions when his teammate went out in collisions with Hill. Had Schumacher remained at the team in 1996, he would have been a strong contender for a 3rd consecutive driver's title, but the lure of Ferrari proved too strong. Herbert, who learned early in the year not to expect to see much of his teammates' data, was shown the door, meaning the new champions had 2 new drivers for 1996. But not only did Benetton fail to defend their title in 1996, neither new driver Jean Alesi nor the returning Berger managed to win a single race. Meanwhile, several top team staff were tempted to follow Schumacher to Ferrari. Brawn decided to move on and was soon joined by Byrne. Midway through 1997, Berger delivered a final hurrah for Benetton. The driver who scored their first F1 win also took their last at the Hockenheimring during what was otherwise a tough season for the 38-year-old driver now heading into retirement. He missed several races due to illness, though stand-in Alexander Wurz impressed, winning a full-time drive for the following year. Another threat to Benetton's performance emerged, however. Renault called time on its multiple championship-winning engine program, leaving Benetton without a manufacturer supply. Briatore was also gone, stepping down late in the season and replaced by ProDrive's David Richards. F1 introduced drastic new aerodynamic regulations for 1998, forcing teams to build considerably narrower cars. Benetton appeared to have anticipated the changes well and got their new B198 running early. However, McLaren blew the competition away with their MP413, which was allied to a timely switch to Bridgestone tyres. Wurz was joined at the team by Giancarlo Fisichella, who Briatore also managed. Benetton continued using Renault's engines as a customer and branded the Mechachrome units as Playlife, a new extension to its sportswear brand. However, they were increasingly outgunned by the manufacturer-backed Mercedes and Ferrari engines, and their competitiveness dwindled over the coming years. 5th in the championship was Benetton's lowest finish in more than a decade. Fellow ex-Renault users Williams soon agreed a deal with former Benetton supplier BMW, who targeted a return to F1 in 2000. There was another change at the top of the team, as Richards left within a year and Rocco Benetton installed in his place. Seeking to claw back some of their lost performance, designers Pat Simmons and Nick Worth devised an innovation for 1999 known as front torque transfer. This was intended to improve the B199's cornering. However, any benefit gained as a result of the weight it added to the front end of the car was insufficient, and it was soon removed. The team continued its slip down the order, scoring just 16 points all year. Worth departed at the end of the year, and rumours mounted that Benetton was looking for a way out of Formula One. Just 2 years after leaving F1, Renault decided it wanted to return. And so, 5 days after the 2000 season began, the manufacturer confirmed it would do so, taking over the Benetton team. However, the rebranding would not take effect for 2 more years, during which time the Benetton name remained. Fisichella delivered second place at the next race in Brazil, giving Benetton an early uplift in the 2000 championship. That ended up proving decisive, as they ended the year tied for 4th place in the points with BAR, and Fisichella's podium made the difference, which put Benetton ahead. For the team's final year as Benetton, Renault produced a new, novel 110-degree V10 engine, but that didn't prove the breakthrough they needed, and the team lacked pace and reliability for much of the season. Only in the latter part of the year did it finally start to come good, and Fisichella delivered Benetton's final podium finish at Spa. His new teammate Jenson Button, however, laboured to a distant 17th in the championship. The pair lined up for Benetton's final race at Suzuka inside the top 10. Fisichella retired with 6 laps to go while running just outside the points in 7th, promoting Button in his place to take the final finish for Benetton in F1. Suzuka was a fitting place for the Benetton story to come to an end. The team had scored 3 of its 27 Grand Prix wins there, and it was the track where they clinched their only Constructors' Championship victory in 1995. Not bad for a t-shirt manufacturer.